Oh,
Lizzie, we're going to be talking about how much is too much to share on social media. Because a lot of people think, you go online and you see a lot of people sharing certain stuff and
hmm
too much, like what is too much to share, what is not, what is appropriate? That is the question at hand. I have opinion on that. I do. I think I see a lot of oversharing, a lot of oversharing. I'm like, people don't realize, yeah, probably shouldn't do that. And I get it, all in the heat of the moment, and I get it, but they're not thinking in advance. So we'll give it another 30 seconds and then we'll just start it up. And Lizzie, if you have any thoughts on it, we can pull you up and you can talk about it. Oh, you never show? Okay, that's fine. You don't have to.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you never show your face. Oh yeah, heck no. Yeah, absolutely not. No, it's absolutely you never have to show your face. They're like, I don't show my kids on social media. I just don't. People always ask me, what do my kids look like? Do they look like their dad if they don't know my husband? And I'm like, they look like their dad. I don't know. You see my kids, then you would know, but I don't show them on social media. So therefore, if you know them, then you know my husband. But otherwise, I don't show them. It's just, that's just how I roll. But all right, let's get started. Good enough. People show up, they show up. This is going to go, for the ones who don't know, if you're going to miss it, I'm going to upload it onto our YouTube channel. And we're also going to put it on our Spotify channel as well. And then this here, when we record it, I'll take little tidbits of it and we'll put it on here as well as a little teaser. And then you just go over and watch the full thing there. That's what we're going to do. So
Sounds good.
let's start with this. What do you think considers as oversharing on social media? What counts as oversharing? It's like showing your lunch, showing maybe you had argument with your spouse, too much into your child's life. What do you think is considered oversharing, Donna?
Um, Definitely. I mean, back in the day, I think like when Facebook was really, really big and people had to
Hmm.
like post their lunch and where they're, I'm at the mall and stuff like
Hmm.
that. That was totally oversharing. But nowadays, I think it's grown.
Hmm.
The oversharing has grown and it's scary
Very much.
because um we're just giving out too much information on social media, and then we wonder why you get scammed or you get phone calls, or
Yep.
people try to get your information. They get it from everything that we put out there, like, is, oh, I'm going on vacation tomorrow. Well, now people know that you're going on vacation.
Yep. Never, I would say honestly, if you're going on vacation, just tell the people that you're close to, like maybe your neighbor so they can watch the house.
Like,
Tell your family so that they know where you are. When we go on vacation, if we go to the beach, we might go to South Carolina. I don't tell anybody I'm going except for like my neighbor to keep an eye on the house and a few very close friends. And we're gone, I take all sorts of pictures. And then when I am on my way home, I might be an hour from my house, then I start sharing if I want to. I haven't done it in forever, but if I want to, I will start sharing pictures. When we go on international trips to visit my husband's family, it's the same way. I do not share pictures of anything until we are literally back in the United States, and then I'll
like,
start sharing what I want to share. And even that, I'm not sharing pictures of my kids. I'm not sharing pictures of my nieces or nephews. I'm not sharing pictures of random people. Like just like the last podcast we did, you saw that I had fuzzed out my kids' pictures and I fuzzed out the bodyguards that we had, just because I don't have their permission to do that. Not only just for my kids, but I don't put my kids on in general, but I don't have permission from the security guards that my kids had. I don't have that permission. I'm not doing it. And the thing is with them, when we go on vacation overseas and we have the security, they're exactly the same way. I just tell them like, please do not post my kids' pictures on social media. They've never done it. That is why to this day I'm still friends with them because they respect that. I'm like, please just
yeah.
don't show my kids on social media. And they don't. And I've even had to tell my own nephew that when he became a dad 2 years ago, I said to him, I was like, don't post your baby on social media. I was like, I know you're going to want to because you're a first time dad and you're very excited to do that. I was like, just don't do it. Please just don't do it. And he said, okay. And he's never done
Yeah, I mean,
it.
smart, very,
Yeah,
very smart.
it
I,
is.
I don't like when people will take a picture of someone in a parking lot because they didn't put their cart back, and then they feel
Yeah.
the need to put them on
Yeah.
social media. Like,
Yeah,
Lies.
it's just too much. Or so you might, you know, like I've seen people have arguments with their spouses and they have to put it out there for the world to see. I'm like, is that necessary? Because in the end, if you think about it, right, it's out there for the rest of your life. Like you might delete it. You're like, oh, I don't want it. I'm going to delete it from my personal page or my personal
Mm-hmm.
TikTok page, Instagram page, Facebook page, whatever social media you have. But what you don't realize is somebody could have already come in and screenshotted that and it's out there. There's nothing that you can do. It's out there.
Yep.
So you always have to really think about it. And that's one thing that I told my kids. I was like, don't put things on the social media that you don't want to. Like my girls this year just now got Instagram. A couple of years ago, they got Instagram and they asked me to follow them. And I said, that's fine, I will. But I've also made it clear, I was like, you need to make sure what you post. I said, because it's going to be out there for the rest of your life. And I have one daughter that wants to be a dentist. I'm like, that could affect your career. You got to be careful. The next one, when she wants to be an entrepreneur and own her own business, I'm like, that could affect your career. So I make sure that they don't post something that they won't regret. So they post like, you know, prom pictures or this picture,
Yeah.
you know,
The
things of, you
normal.
know, the normal stuff, which I'm fine with because I'm like, okay, it's nothing bad. I make sure that they don't post pictures of themselves in their bathing suits and things
Right.
of that nature. It's like we just don't go there.
Yeah. And some of these kids, they like to post pictures and they'll put like like a heart or something like over the
Hmm.
beer can.
Yeah.
People are smart. We know what you're doing. It's
Yes. Yes. Really.
you
So
just you have to be careful because anybody can Google your name. And
yeah,
that
and
could cost you a
it,
job.
it comes down to really, I think, of being pressured because you want to be like everybody else. Like all these young people want to be like everybody. They always want to be one step up. And so that's why they're posting this because they're like, oh, well, so and so, I think if I continue to post this kind of stuff, then I'm going to get more followers. And more
Right.
followers means eventually I'm going to start make money. I can go live and I can do this and I can become famous.
Right.
Yes, you're going to become famous, but do you want to become famous in that way? And that's where
Mhm.
you really have to be careful. And even as parents, you know, like I had a friend when her kids were little, she was constantly posting things like, oh, so and so did this today, or so and so did this. I'm like, why would you do that? I'm like, they're little kids. You don't need to keep doing that. I never told her that just because I was like, I'm not getting involved in that. But now that her kids are older, they're like, no, mom, you don't post me. You don't have my permission. Don't take pictures of me.
Right.
We don't want to. So she's learned now that she has to ask her kids permission. So that's what I do in myself. My kid, people are like, do you ever take pictures of your kids? I'm like, I have to ask them permission. They're like, they're your kids. I'm like, yeah, but they also have rights and I respect my kids. If they don't want me to take a picture of them, I'm not going to take a picture of them. Or if I do, they're like, please don't post that. And I'm like, you know, I'm not posting it. And they're like, okay, good. So,
So then how does this like something social media and like for us,
mhm.
how does it translate into like celebrities and people taking advantage of their pictures and putting,
Well,
you've worked in social
so with
media, so
celebrities, they pretty much they've signed up for this, whether they think about it or not. When you want to become a celebrity in any way, shape, or form, whether you want to be an actor, actress, singer, newscaster, somebody in sports, like you have a relative that's in sports, right? When they do that, they've signed up for that, whether they like it or not, they've signed up for it.
mhm,
And that is where it comes down to they have to be careful whatever they do when they're in public. They have got to always have in the back of their mind, there could be a camera out there. There could be somebody out there. So do I want to act like an oompa loomp or am I going to act professional?
yeah,
Yeah. And so it comes down to that. And sometimes, you know, they're caught doing something, you know, because they're not thinking at that moment. And then it's out there for the world. And then it comes down to, okay, we have to now do damage control, or do we just not care? Most of the time they don't care because it's like, you know, just ignore it. It's not really worth, it's not, sometimes it's not for them, it's not worth bringing the attention to. It's not. People might make a bigger deal about over it than really it's necessary. Like I see it all the time, like really, it's not worth continuing. You're just wanting to get the attention because you see it and you want to bring it up. It's not worth it. It's just, you know, move on. If they haven't commented on it, they're not talking about it, their people haven't brought up on it, then they're like, it's not worth it. You're making it a big deal. They're not. If it was a big deal, then they would deal with it.
what do they do about like you know are just not just not nice on the internet, or they say lies, or they post things that aren't, relevant or correct. Like, so how does their people handle something like that?
So it basically it comes down to the celebrity themselves. If they want to address it, then they can have their people address it, or they're just going to ignore it. It's just not worth them addressing it, because if they address it, then it's gonna be, whoa, well then what happened here? Then it could become a bigger thing that needs to be. It's like, okay, you did this here, then the celebrity's going to come and address it, right? Like their people will come and address it, but then you're going to have the person come back, oh, well then, and it's going to continue going on and on and on. And is it really worth it? They have to think about that. Is it worth continuing on? Like sometimes it's just not worth them to even comment on. They're just going to ignore it. And I always say, never believe anything you hear until you hear it from their mouths themselves. If they
Mm-hmm.
haven't gone onto their social media page and they have not come out and said, hey, I'm dating so and so, or I got married, or I have a child, or this or this. If they have not come out and said that, then it's not true. Don't believe it until you hear it from their mouths themselves. Just don't. It's just like with you. If somebody comes out and said you did something and you're like, but that's not true. Okay, well, if you didn't say it, then just leave it be. It's not worth it, because if they were to constantly always comment on something like that, that means their whole life, every single day, they're going to be commenting on all the lies that they see, and it's not worth their time. They have other things to do. They're making movies, they are in sports, they're doing songs, they're doing this. They have to build their career. So they're not
Yeah.
going to worry about every single thing that comes out that's not true. It's just not worth their time. There might be something that comes out that really makes them angry. Yes, then they will most likely address it. But for the most part, if you go and look at every celebrity, you'll notice that they don't comment on it. You're like, why aren't they commenting on it? Because it's not worth it. It's
Yeah.
not worth it, because if they're going to comment on this and they got to comment on the thing tomorrow and then the next day and the next day, and it's just not worth their
Like
time.
a
It's
snowball
just not.
effect.
They've got better things to do, honestly.
Yeah.
They just let it go over their heads. They roll it off their shoulders and they just move on with it. And that's another thing you should see. Celebrities also don't post their kids. A lot of them don't post their families, their children, who they're dating, where they go
Mm-hmm.
on vacation. A lot of them don't, because they like that privacy. And I think we're not celebrities, but I think we need to take note of what they do. We should live how they want to, because then it's just about respecting your privacy. Do you want the attention? If you don't want the attention, then don't post it, because most of the time people will post something thinking that they're cool, and then they're going to get a negative backlash on whatever they posted. And then it blows up something so large it wasn't even worth it. You're like, I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, well, I could have told you that if you hadn't posted it. So I don't,
You know
yeah,
what? I think it also comes down to, even if their work is put out there,
hmm
and then people start to, you know, pull it apart and make fun
yep,
of it, and
yep.
um, then it's hard for them to detach from something like that.
Yes, it is. It really is. That's why you just always have to be careful with what you post, how much is too much oversharing, and if you have kids and you're going to give them the phone for the first time, you need to have that conversation with them. And don't just have that conversation with them once. Have it multitude all the darn time. And I don't check my girls' phones because they're old enough and they're responsible enough, but they know at any given moment if I have to pull their phones to look at what they do, I will do it. They know I will do it. I've never had to check their phones. Never had to. I have
Right.
friends that check their kids' phones, and that's fine. And that's you. I trust my kids because I've informed them enough. You've got to be careful with what you post online. And I make it very well known to them. I was like, don't do it. And so I've never had to check my girls' phones, but because they've never given me anything to post. Now my boys, they're too young to have phones, so they use my phone. And I make it very well clear, you're using my phone. If you do anything stupid, it's going to look bad on me, and I
Mhm.
can get in trouble for this by the law if you do anything stupid. And they're like that. And I'm not trying to scare him. I'm just being honest with them. Like, you've got to be very
That's really
careful.
smart. It's really smart
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do it that way.
yeah. And so they're like, okay. And so And even though they use my phone, I don't go on to their little Snapchat accounts because I trust my kids. I trust them enough because, like I said, even though they're boys, like my younger one, he just uses it to text his friends back and forth. And I, once in a while I'll check it just because something will pop up and I'll accidentally hit it. And I'm like, haha, and I just move on because, they're little kids and they're just, being kids. But always, always, even with your kids have their phones, always just constantly remind them, just be careful with what you do and what you put out there because I there was a year, so hold on, my second oldest daughter is in 11th grade, and I think this is when she was in 8th grade. They were sitting at her desk in school, in middle school, and one of her friends had a phone. She didn't have a phone at the time. And they were like, "What is this?" And something came through, and they're like, they immediately went to the teacher. And they showed the teacher what it said. And I'm not going to say what it was because it was definitely not appropriate. And they immediately were like, go to the office now with that phone, go now. And they went to the office and it was very, very, I mean, it was so bad. The principal couldn't even look at the picture. He was like, he had to call in the nurse because the student had explained what it was. And the nurse had to come in and look at it and go, yep, that's exactly what that is.
Oh
And
my,
so yeah. And so, I mean, and it wasn't good. So, and thankfully the girl whose phone it was, had got put into a chat with her friends and she was like, she thought it was going to be good and then she realized it wasn't good and she immediately pulled herself out of it. And I've even told my kids, I've seen like they would show me the chats at their end. I'm like, get out now, just get out. And they'd pull themselves out. I'm like, nope, get out. Just get out. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting in trouble. And so that's where we have to really talk to our children and raise them, about oversharing and what they might not think is oversharing. They might think it's funny, but then you're like, no, because a lot of times what they think is doing, it can actually turn into be a huge mental health issue. It's considered, bullying. You might not think it's bullying, but you don't know what the other person is that has gone through and
yep,
how it's going to affect them. So you always got to be careful with that because online cyberbullying, and it's not even kids that do the online cyberbullying. Sadly, it's the adults as well. I know I've told you guys this before in the past. I lost a nephew to cyberbullying,
yeah,
and he was an adult, and that was probably the hardest thing we ever had to go through. He didn't even know it or anything. So to this day, we don't know. We know nothing. We don't know nothing. We can only assume it had to do with the cyberbullying, and he was a grown adult. So
sad.
it is really sad. You just have to always be, cautious of what you put out there and what you say, because your safety should always be number one. Your kids' safety. And I know everybody on here will agree with me. Yes, our children's safety is always going to be number one. And that is why you always got to be on top of that. And I would say honestly, oversharing, I think, in my opinion, comes from the younger people. I wouldn't say so much the adults. I would say it's the younger generation that it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you, but then disagree with you because I think a lot of adults don't know when to stop either.
That is true.
I mean,
I will give you that.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've been on, several group chats where we had to
Hmm.
remove ourselves because people don't know how to act,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, and you don't want to be associated with something like that. So that's why you
No,
kind of,
no.
you know,
Yeah.
pull away.
No, no, no. And yeah. And if you're in this chat or if you're going to be listening to this live, don't be afraid to say no. If you are in a group chat with friends, or whether it's a WhatsApp or an Instagram or wherever your group chats are at, I know there's a lot out there. And if you're with people that you don't really know and it's getting a little making you uncomfortable, don't second doubt yourself. Just remove yourself. And you can tell the person who may have put you in it, who started it, your friend, you're like, you know what? I have to pull myself from this because it's going down a road that I don't feel comfortable.
Hmm.
And they might talk you, try to guilt trip you. Just stick to what you know is in your heart. Do what you think is best for you. Because in the end of the day, you're the one that has to be comfortable. And if you're guilt tripped in there, then the back of your mind, you're gonna be like, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh. And you don't want to feel that way. You always want to be at peace. And if you're not at peace of something that you're in, you gotta go. That's what I always say. Just go. You might feel guilty for a few minutes, a day or two. Your friends might not be happy with you, and that's fine. That's fine. But just know your mental health will always come first. And most of the time, I would say that if you're pulling yourself out of a chat or a group chat or whatever you're in, because you don't like how it's going, usually by the end of the within a week, 2 weeks down the road, or whatever it is, something's gonna happen, and you're like, thank God I pulled myself out of there now, so I'm not a part of whatever drama that has occurred. And you're safe, and you can still be friends with all those people because at the end of the day, you weren't a part of whatever happened.
Yeah.
That's what you want to be. You won't be part of it. And you always can very respectfully tell your friends if they want to come on and tell you, like, hey, guess what? So and so. Like, nope, I'm not in that chat. Thank you, but I don't want to hear it. And I've done that many times. I'm like, listen, I was like, I'm friends with everybody, but I don't want to hear your drama. I'm like, that stays in your room, your chat. I left for a reason. Please don't tell me about it. And if they like you enough and love you enough, they'll respect your decision. That's how I'm going to say. They will respect your decision. If you just say, I don't want to be part of this just because it makes me feel uncomfortable, um, and and things like that. It is what it is. So,
Yeah. And I think, when we talk about oversharing, even though we say uh, social media,
mhm.
it, all these chat groups are social media
Yep,
in a sense,
yep, yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
really, they are.
Yeah,
What you think might be, you might think what is safe, you have to realize that, do you trust everybody in that chat? Like you and I, we have a group chat with for some very, like, 5 or 6 very, very close friends, and we're not growing it past that because we trust the women that are in this group. We've made it very clear that we trust people in there, and we can discuss what we're going to discuss, and we know it's not going to be shared among their people. Not, we don't talk about anything bad. We're just being, funny and entertaining. But at the same point, if one of our girlfriends comes on there and wants to tell us something very personal, they know that they can come and tell us something personal, and we're not going to go tell anybody else. We're going to keep it in that chat. And that's how it should be. It should be
exactly.
that way. So I always say the smaller your circle is, the better it is. That's what I always say. The smaller it is, the better it is. And that's what I tell my kids. The smaller your group is, the better it is. You don't need to have all these friends. Just keep it small. And it goes with, sharing on your social media. You don't have to have a gazillion followers. Just, keep it small.
Yeah, yeah. And I honestly, I learned that the hard way.
Hmm.
So, and I was, I thought that having a good billion friends was the way to go, and it's
Hmm.
really not.
No.
It just caused more drama and more pain and more disagreeing, and I'm glad I'm not involved in it anymore.
Yeah, no, I think, and if we look at the future of social media, is it going to get better and it's going to get worse? I do get asked that question a lot, and I can't answer that question. I don't think really any of us can answer that question. I think it comes back to what you put out there and what you allow in your lives, and how you have to balance what you want. As long as you're at peace and you're comfortable with what you're sharing, then you're good to go. And you're in a safe zone. As long as you know what you're putting out there, you're fine. And don't be afraid. Like, there were so many people that I was following on TikTok or Instagram, and it got so uncomfortable. I was like, ugh. And I just hit the unfollow button. I was like, I can't do that because it really was just, I'm like, oh no, 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 no. And I do have to sometimes take my social media hat off. I do have to take it off sometimes, but it's very hard because I've been in the industry for so long. It is really hard for me to do. But I'm like, no, 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 don't do that. So I think that always just have rules on what you think is good for you to share. That's what you
Right.
need to have. Always have rules. And I might have rules, you might have rules, and our rules might be different, and that's fine. That is absolutely fine. You do you, and I'll do me. But
Yeah.
I know you and I are on the same page on this one. But just always know, you just stick to what you have. Just stick to your rules, what you want. Oh, Lindsay's on. Lindsay, of
Yeah.
course you're on here.
Of course she is.
Lindsay's gonna be sleeping in tomorrow. Actually, it is already tomorrow for.
And I thought that Vera put a little comment there, and
Mhm.
she's so white, right? Ugh. The quality of friendship versus the quantity, and that's what we were
Exactly.
saying before, how
Exactly.
important that is.
Yep, it really truly is. The quality of your friendship is right. And I've lost friends over my life, and that's fine. And it has nothing to do with oversharing on
Mm.
social media. It's just you grow your separate ways. Like they want to do their thing, you want to do your thing, and that's fine. And and another thing goes, like we have friends that might have different
Bye,
political
Lizzie.
views, have different political views, and that's fine. But we don't bring it into our conversation. We just know we keep it
Yeah,
out and we
just
just
leave it
continue.
out.
You leave it out and you can be best of friends. You can be besties. Oh, that's okay, Lizzie. Have a great night. See you later. Yeah, I mean, you just it's what you want to share. And if you can keep different, like with our podcast, we've already made rules. We're not talking about politics and we're not talking about other things because we want to keep it so that everybody's comfortable and everybody's happy. That's one of the things
Yeah,
that
yeah, definitely. And I know there's not that many people on the live, but we'll put it out there. Like, what do people want to hear? What
Mhm.
do you want us to talk about? And basically, you're just going to get two ladies' opinions
Yeah.
of,
And yep. And if you guys ever, if we'll announce that we have topics coming up, and if it's something that you're very passionate about, you're like, hey, can I come on and talk? But I don't want to show your face. Like Lizzie said, she doesn't show her face, but it's something she wants to talk about. We can do a private podcast, so we don't have to do it live on TikTok. We don't have to do it live on Instagram.
Mhm.
We can do a pre-recorded one, and then you won't show your face, and we'll just record it, and we'll do a little tidbit here, and then we'll put it on the YouTube channel. And again, it'll be like you've called in and we're just listening to you talk.
Yep.
We can absolutely do things like that. Or you can even just type it in, send us a big email, a big letter, and we can really read it online. We can do things like that. We would love to have everybody's opinion. We're working really hard and getting some people on here that can talk about, things like we have one that we're working on right now. Do you have a child in the entertainment industry? Are you a parent to a child in the entertainment industry?
Yep.
We would love to hear you. If you don't want to be on live like we're talking right now, that's fine. We can do a pre-recorded one because we would love to hear your thoughts and encourage other people that might want to get in the industry. Or maybe your child is now an adult and you could talk about what it was like growing up, having a child in the industry. And that can really just encourage I know things change all the time in the industry, and but just talking about what you went through as a parent, having a child in the entertainment industry. It doesn't have to be actors. It could be modeling. It could be singing. It could be dancing. We have a lot of little
Sure.
kids that are in ballet and jazz and whatever it is, and now they've gone on to be quite successful, or maybe they're in theater or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Off
Um,
Broadway or,
yes, yep,
anything.
loved,
Local
yep, anything.
theater.
Yep, love to hear anything of that. But no, I think um, the future of social media, it's going to keep growing. I think it is definitely going to keep going. It's not going anywhere. It absolutely is not going anywhere. The future is really in your hands, guy. It's what you put out there, what you say, what you want to say. I see a lot of people that have farms and they share their farms and the animals, and I think it's really cool. Some people want to talk about their business. They use social media for their business, which I think is fantastic because a lot of people are growing their little own home businesses where they were able to quit their jobs now because this is their full-time job and
Yep.
it's what they wanted. Social media is also helping people that have amazing talents, whether they're singers, they're getting discovered. They're getting signed by all
Mhm.
these, they're getting signed, or you have people who are into acting and they start acting and they're putting out the little tidbits of little videos that they do. They're
People
getting
see them.
discovered. They're getting discovered. They're like, hey, let's do this. So I think the future of social media is great. I think it's amazing because it's definitely growing and it's helping people. It's you're responsible for what you want to put out there. So as long as you keep it positive, and I think social media can stay positive as long as we continue making it positive. And remember, like I said, guys, if you're ever in a group chat, any type of chat, and social media isn't just TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it can be a Discord, it can be your Snapchat, it can be anything. And if
Yeah.
any given time you're not comfortable in that, get the heck out. Just stick to what your mind is telling you. If you're not comfortable, whatever it is, yes, Paisley, we know Paisley wants to be an actor, you guys. We're voting for her. We're rooting for
Yep.
her. He is our little friend. But no, so if you're ever uncomfortable in a situation, or if you second guess yourself, if you're like, oh, I want to post this, and you second guess posting that, don't do it. That is it right there. If you second guess anything, Just don't do it. And always also, this is another one. If you see something on there and you want to comment on something, think before you hit the send button. Just think because again, even if you put it up there and you're like, oh gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Let me go back and delete it. It's someone could have
Someone
already
has seen it.
screenshot it. Somebody's already seen it. They could have screenshotted it, and then it's out there. It's out there. So always be careful with what you post, what you comment on, because you just never know. You just never know. And just think about it. Your future is here on social media. What you do, what you say, what you post is going to affect you for the rest of your life. That's what I always say. So
Yeah.
in our kids, we want to protect our kids because that's another thing is social media is, the big mental health. You'll see a lot of kids, unfortunately, how do I say this word without getting in trouble on social media? Deciding they don't want to be in this world anymore because they were bullied online. And that it's sad. It's a reality that we have to accept. Unfortunately, it's not something that none of us had to deal with when we were younger because we didn't have social media. And now social media is here, and we only had to deal with bullying face to face, right? But now you've got these kids that are being bullied behind keyboard warriors, and that's what I'm going to
Yeah.
say. You have that, and then you just have got to always be careful. And you don't know, we have predators online who pretend that they're kids, and your kids are like, oh, we're going to be friends, and in reality they're grown people coming, trying to go after our children. And that's another thing is you've got to always know who your kids are talking to
Yes.
online. Always know. I know when my girls, and I can say this, when they first got their phones and they first downloaded Instagram, and I remember one day looking at their phone, I'm like, who's this person? They're like, we don't know. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, no, gone. I'm like, you don't know this person, gone.
Out.
I'm like, are they a celebrity? No, gone. If they're a celebrity, then I'm fine with it. But if they're not, you got to go. And so that's what I made them do. I was like, if you don't know who they are, I don't, no, absolutely not. I'm like, you're minors. We don't know who this person is. Just
Yeah.
because they tell you that they're 16-year-old does not mean that they're 16. They could be a 35-year-old man for all we know. Um,
Exactly.
so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, moms and dads, or aunties or uncles or grandparents. If you are responsible, if you have guardianship over a minor, don't be afraid to take the phone away from your child and look to see what they're doing. If you, at any given point, second doubt what your kid is doing, don't be afraid because you might, at the end of the day, might be saving them, might be saving somebody else. And also tell your kids this one as well. If one of their friends say, "Oh, I'm going to unalive myself," right? But they might roll over it. Make sure your kids come and tell you this right away so that it can be dealt with immediately. One of my kids had that in school, and I'm like, "Oh no!" And I called the school immediately, and the principal said, "Thank you so much for calling me." He goes, "We just started getting flooded with parents calling us in, letting us know this was going on," and they said, "We're dealing with it immediately. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much." So they were very grateful. I don't know what happened in the end of the day because obviously it's not our business and they're not going to tell you that. But even if the kid was just being stupid or doing it to get attention, it's you definitely always want to be on top of that. And there's also the one thing that we don't like here in the United States. I know our British friends don't understand with the school, you know, um, even with kids putting threats online or being funny,
Hmm.
there's been several times where even at my kids' schools, those emails have come through or they've seen them, on their social media pages and they reported them to the school. And that is the life that we live. So, I mean, I like to say it's the kids are crying out for help, but they don't know how to cry out for help, and that's what they're doing. Unfortunately, it's the wrong way to cry out for help.
Yeah.
But, as long as you talk to your kids about how much is too much oversharing or even whatever they see to come to you as an adult right away. And even as for adults, even sometimes adults might be crying out for help at the same time, but as adults, we're going to cry out for help in a different way.
Hmm.
And we just have to always have our radar on and looking for that. Because I mean, even adults, they're going to cry out for help because they're too embarrassed to say, I need
I
help
need help.
because they're like,
Yeah.
I'm a 35-year-old adult or I'm a 45 or I'm 25, whatever it is. They're like, I shouldn't be having to ask for help. People think I have the perfect life. Nobody has a perfect life. Nobody, if anybody comes and tells you they have a perfect life, that they don't. They
Yeah.
really don't. And so a lot of times that's something on social media that they will portray that they have a perfect life. And that's fine. They can portray that all they want, but it comes back to, oversharing. And I've seen a lot of TikToks lately where people have been they were sharing something and people didn't like it and they called social services on them and the children removed, and that turned out to be a blessing of, sad, but a blessing that the children were taken care of. And sometimes, we might sit there and think oversharing is too much. Like I've seen ones where people are walking the streets of Portland or Seattle or wherever, and they're wanting to help people that are homeless or drug addicts. And you'd be like, why would you want to share these people's lives? You don't have it on there. Well, there was one the other day that I saw, and they actually found this man who had a TBI, and his family had been looking for him for 15 years. 15
Wow.
years they had been looking for him, and they found him all because this guy, and I don't know if it was his girlfriend, wife, whomever she was, they decided to go around filming the homeless, trying to give them food and whatnot, and they happened to have found this person. So it's all
Mhm.
about balancing what is good to be put out there.
Yep. Yep. It's important. And
It
I
is
think this
really
is a
good.
really good topic to discuss, and we could probably discuss it in
Oh
further
my God.
on so
Oh
many
yeah.
different levels.
We really could. We really could.
Hmm.
But does anybody have any questions, thoughts in the chat? Do you have anything anybody want to say before we close this out? I mean, this is a conversation that we could go on forever.
Yeah. I mean,
I could passionately talk hours about this, but obviously we don't have hours. But just I don't think anybody does, which is fine. You don't have to. But just to recap, be careful what you post out there. Think twice before you do it. Think twice before you comment on anything. Don't be afraid to check your kids' phones. If you 100% trust them, that's great. But again, always tell your kids to think twice. Yes, Paisley, we know because but no, just honestly, guys, just always think twice before you do things, and tell your kids this, that whatever they put out there is going to be out there for the rest of life. Even if they go back and think that they've deleted it, it's, trust me, somebody has probably snapshotted it already, and it's just waiting. It's just waiting, waiting, waiting to be put out there.
yeah.
Like you see these people who are politicians, and they may have done something in their younger years, right? We all do something when they're in younger years, and they go on because they want to become a politician, or they want to become this or become that. And then someone's like, oh, I've got this. And then they post it out there. And now they have to go try to clean up that dirty work. Like, yeah, I was 15 or I was 21 or I was 22 when I did that.
Hmm.
Everybody is dumb. And, they don't think of, they may have forgotten that that picture existed. Maybe they didn't know that picture existed, right? In this day and age, unfortunately, it's you put it out there, it's for the whole world to see.
Yeah.
And that is why we see a lot of celebrities being very quiet. They don't share things. They keep a lot of their social media pages specifically for work and work only. I know we always want to know what they're doing, who they're dating, who they're with. And trust me, as social media managers, half the time I want to know too, but it's not for us to know. It's not for us to know. It's their right. And when and if they ever want us to know, they'll do it. And there was a celebrity, I can't remember her name now, but she got married. Didn't tell anybody she got married until a year later when she was going on a talk show host. And she's like, oh yeah, I got married. They're like, what? She's like, yeah, I got married a year ago. And then she came on a year later and she's like, I had twins. And they're like, what? And then she's like, yeah, they're 4 months old. And they're like, wait, what? It's because she's kept that private. They release these things when they want to.
Yeah.
And
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 probably for a reason
sometimes,
also.
exactly. And there are times that they may never release these things. They may never release that their kids. Like we know, for example, Julia Roberts, she has 3 kids, but for the longest time, we knew her kids were when they were little, and then she stopped, and we didn't see them until they were much older. Um,
Hmm.
you have all these, they do these things to protect their kids because, as they say, their kids didn't ask to put in the limelight, right? Their kids didn't ask to be put out there. Their kids didn't ask to become famous. Mom and dad are famous, or maybe mom is famous, but it doesn't mean the kids have to have their whole world splashed out there,
Right.
right? And so that's how
For their
we have
safety
to.
too, you know?
Exactly. That's how we have to look at it, right? Like, I'm choosing to do this podcast. I'm choosing to show my face, but are my kids choosing to show their face? Are my kids choosing this? No, they're not. And that is, one thing we have to always think about. Think about others that are around you,
Mhm.
um, whether they're your kids, your husbands, whatever they are. Think about, because whatever you put out there, whatever you post in the end of the day is going to affect them positively or negatively. And that's what we always need to think about. Think about the people around you before you post.
Yep. Well, this was a great topic.
It
And
was.
I'm glad that we got to talk about it.
Mhm.
And we will have